Hello and welcome everybody to your golden ticket to success, freedom and happiness. It's my real pleasure today to welcome Rebecca Robertson to be our guest today and share her wisdom all with us. She's a professional financial planner with a difference. She's passionate about helping people achieve true financial freedom, and she specializes in helping women understand the inner workings of their relationship with money and their finances. She actually calls herself the feminine financial planner. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. I am so excited. Now, because I know that it's a topic that most of our listeners and audience today will be interested to hear. And having worked for many, many years in the industry of facilitating change, transformations, coaching, teaching and speaking, this is a subject that always, always, always finds its way right to the top of the list of not so much priorities, but things that people are struggling with. Yeah, what's your experience? I mean, you're out in the world really getting into the nitty-gritty. So tell us a little bit about what you've come to know after all these years of working in this area.
Yeah, and I'd love to share with you. I mean, like you say, I have clients. I'm a real person. I'm an independent financial planner. I specialise in mortgages and property, for example. So I don't particularly do investment work. I sort of do very much 101, back to basics, good old-fashioned financial planning with my clients. And it's all about working out what their long-term strategies are and looking at where they want to be and making the most out of the money they've already got. And what a lot of people struggle with is that sort of that I feel like a bit of peer pressure, expectations of what they think they should, where they should be. And also what they think they should have, and just really sort of some people finances in general, doesn't matter how much they've got, if it's fast or it doesn't really matter if they've got a lot or a little, they sort of generally can struggle. I find a lot of parents, for example, mums particularly, they're managing the purse strings and they're doing that fantastically. They're doing really well with their local shop, they're doing really well with their finances day to day, making sure they're getting those good deals. Definitely becoming more savvy in sort of the population about that. Whether it's Aldi or Sainsbury's or Asda, for example, and in business and in personal, women generally and men are shopping around a lot more, so they're doing their comparison websites and shopping around. But generally, I find that a lot of people in general just don't take a step back from their finances and go, right, what should I do? Where should I go? And when they do, often it's in a bit of a rush. Maybe they're in a sort of got themselves into a scenario, or they're a particular milestone in their life where they're having to make a decision, but they're not doing it as a general rule as going through life. And it's something that I try and encourage people to do on a regular basis, to sort of take a step back and just respect this major thing that unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, is part of our everyday lives, where we're buying a cup of tea, making a cup of tea at home, or we're out for a meal, or we're thinking about a marketing concept with our business, or whatever it might be, what we're doing, it affects money. And it's not necessarily how much you've got, it's what you do with it that counts.
So I guess what you're saying is that we need money to survive it, because there's, coming from perhaps more of a spiritual point of view, I know that something I hear a lot from people is that it's not good to desire money. It's not good to want money and want nice things. It's almost frowned upon and judged, perhaps. So really what you're saying is you're putting it right back into perspective. It's a practical part of our life that we rely on. And I guess what we could say is that, if you view money as a frivolous kind of luxury, who's to say that we can't view water or the air that we breathe in the same way? Because as you quite rightly said, that we need money to get around in life, to to make a cup of tea, to flip the switch for the electricity, to expand our business, to send our children off to higher education, or even for healthcare, depending on where you are in the world. So you're bringing it back to, you know, the root of what it is, that it's a necessity to survive. What would you say to somebody who perhaps still struggles with feeling guilty about wanting to have a comfortable life and more?
I think there's when you're talking about being spiritual and talking about, especially there's a theme with women that wear, you know, with the magazines, with television, advertising. There's so much out there that just, you know, buy. Whether you're you know, over 50s, it's creams. Whether it's, you know, whatever age you are, your hair. When you're a mother, it's your baby. We're being sold to constantly. It's a barrage, and there's this higher expectation out there. Even on the school playground, you know, well, what are you wearing, and what car do you drive? And I think once you actually let go of that, sometimes that's your own self-impression and what pressure you're putting on yourself. Actually, other people aren't really like that, and anyone you want really in your life won't judge you like that, and they're not really worth your time. So it's really sort of taking assessment and working out, what is it that makes me happy? Is it an Audi, you know, brand new Audi? Then fine, that's okay. But then make that your goal, make that your driven sort of expectation of where you want to be, and assess where you are with your finances and say, well, actually, to achieve that, then I probably should stop buying a pair of shoes every month, because I don't really need to do that. But if it's shoes that make you happy, let go of the Audi, forget about those sorts of things and say, no, what makes me happy is buying a pair of shoes each month. That's my thing. And everyone has a thing, but it's just being honest with yourself about what that thing is. That little voice in your head that keeps talking to you, just listen to it and attune it, and really sort of take account of what it's telling you and what you're telling yourself. Because sometimes you're not honest enough with your own internal voice. You're sort of, without even realising, you're not self-aware of this voice, of what it's telling you. So it's okay to be materialistic if it's things that make you happy, but don't be materialistic and buy things frivolously that actually aren't there. You're trying to please other people, and you're actually, in effect, you're not actually pleasing yourself.
I think that's a really important point you just made there, Rebecca, that, you know, to take stock of why you're doing things, or why you're desiring the things that you are, and perhaps whose desires are they really? Are they really yours? Or are they, you know, next door neighbours, or, you know, that relative, or someone else in your life that you're trying to aspire to, or perhaps even our parents, because, you know, that our financial and money story can come very strongly as a pattern from our childhood and the people that we grew up around. So I think that what you've highlighted is so important, to really be okay with what you desire, but just check in with whose desire is it.
Exactly. And that point around your parents and your upbringing, that little internal voice, that's, you know, your subconscious mind that you don't always attune to, when it comes to money, was built up as you were brought up. So if, for example, you were Daddy's little princess and Daddy bought you everything and you never had to want for nothing, then generally, as you grow up, this is just generally speaking, so, you know, psychologically, what impression would that leave somebody when they're older? Likewise, if you've got parents that are quite, you know, hiding money under the mattress, and they're really being quite careful with their money, and they, you know, use a tin of beans 2 days in a row because they don't want to waste anything, sort of thing, then that might make you swing one way or the other, in that you might say, well, I never want to be like that, or actually that's a good way to be. And I see that quite a lot with parents, that, oh, well, my parents were always so tight, I never want to be without my children, I just give them whatever they want. And in effect, they're then starting another cycle, and it's just saying to yourself, what is my cycle, what's my pattern? And I talk quite a lot about detoxing and just taking a step back and saying, well, where is it, where am I? And you haven't got to do that when you get into difficulty. You haven't got to do that if you're, you know, buying a house, or wanting to buy a house, or wanting a car, or a holiday, or anyone can do it at any time. And it's just something that I think as a society, after the recession, etc., we should be more attuned to doing on a regular basis. And that coincides with our wants and our desires and our goals and what makes us happy. Otherwise, you know, you've got to know where you've got to start and what your goals are.
Yeah, I think it's definitely about making those choices that align with your inner desires and on a daily basis. So, as you said, for example, if you want that Audi, then it's not going to serve that goal or that intention or that desire that you have.
Mm.
You decide that you're going to change your wardrobe every month, or invest in something. And it is really about understanding that everything that we do spend our money on is actually an investment. Even if we buy a cup of coffee, as you say, it is an investment, and it's a decision that we've made because that makes us happy. And I really do think it's about going back and unpicking it all and asking ourselves, why do I do that? Do I do that simply because my mum used to do it? Or am I doing it because that really is going to make me, jump up and down and do a little happy dance, even if it is something as a cup of coffee. So you must really come across a lot of deep money, what I call money stories, when you meet with your clients.
I do,
do there tend to be specific themes or types of people that you come across? Perhaps, as you sort of mentioned, someone's upbringing might have been perhaps parents weren't freely giving, so they might have decided to go the other way with this. What are the kind of patterns or sort of themes that you see on a regular basis?
Well, I've got one good example. Is I went to see a couple a while ago now, a couple of months ago, and we was going through we do a lot of budget planning in my role, in my actual job, and I sort of tend to sway into the lifestyle budgeting and just sort of give them some help and some guidance, because it sometimes when you're in it you can't really see it. And very, very small example is that he was spending a lot of money per week cash. So we looked at that and we looked at where his spending was, and he was buying pretty much every time he went to the train station and when he went home a Lucozade Sport bottle, which in these sort of small delicatessen shops are around sort of up to £2 each. So if you put that twice a day over a week and then over a month, I think it was around, we worked out on average it was around about £40 to £45 a month he was spending on a bottle of Lucozade. And I asked his wife to go on to their local supermarket website and find out how much a pack, or like a multi-pack, would be, and it literally was a third of the price of what he was spending. So sometimes, we were very much in the mindset of, he hadn't thought of that. They were quite financially astute, they weren't silly, but because they hadn't taken a step back and reviewed things more sort of really just taking a step back and reviewing everything, they just hadn't thought of it. They were just amazed, they couldn't believe it, and we'd had several examples like that. And I find clients typically go into sort of categories where they might be on top of their money, they're keeping an eye on things generally, but they don't take that step back, they don't look at their bigger picture. They're always thinking, oh, we need to move soon because the house isn't big enough, I'm not sure how we're going to do that, I'll think about that later, won't worry about that now, can't do anything about it now. But if they'd been thinking more holistically and taken a step back maybe a year or 2 years before that, they actually might have been further along in their milestone, and maybe it would be, oh, okay, well actually that works out that we can move in 18 months' time because we've got our deposit together, or whichever it might be. So you have sort of that type of client. You have clients that bury their head in the sand, they don't really look at their finances at all. If a bill comes through, they go into a hot sweat and they hide all the bills in the drawer. And then you have people that, I had a client, for example, where she went through all of her bank statements every month and ticked everything off, every transaction, and attached a receipt to the bank statement. So, her impression is that she's very clever with her money. But then when we went through a budget planner, again, same scenario, I explained to her that she had, I think it was about £600 spare a month in that example. And she couldn't believe it. She said, no, that can't be true. So I explained to her one of my tips, which is, okay, go over your last 3 months banking. You've already got them. I've got a budget planner. You can download it from my website, or I can email it to you. It's free. And you just put all those things that you're spending into a category. And it's very hands-on, this, but it does have an impact. It's a hands-on, real tool to make a difference. And from that, she was able to work out actually what her spending was. And she was taking out up to £400 a month in cash, and she didn't really have an idea of what she was spending it on. So over the next 2 or 3 months, I set her the task of actually putting money into envelopes to give herself an idea about what she was spending. Once the money had gone, it had gone, and by the end of the month, she'd really got a real feel of actually where she was spending. It was going out for lunches and meals with her friends, and just buying that coffee and a cake and a beer and a some chips, for example, was adding up to hundreds a month without her even realising it. So she was very financially astute. She had a portfolio of buy-to-lets, but actually it was through that we realised that if she was reduced her outgoings a little, changed her lifestyle just a smidgen, then actually we could have reduced her mortgage, which meant that she wouldn't have to work so much into retirement, and we reduced her overall mortgage term. So it's sometimes those small things that actually have a bigger impact without people realising.
So I think, I mean, it's great what you're really encouraging people to do, and perhaps our audience can take note of this, is to just not be afraid to look at the figures, not be, just be brave and bold and courageous, and really get to grips, and perhaps, however often it's going to take for the initial phase to really, look at the figures. And what I'm going to say there is, I think for a lot of women, when we look at our figures, and I was, I still have to sort of check myself very often on this, is that it can really hit our emotions. It can hit us right where it hurts.
And
we are more scary. Yeah. Do you find that with your clients that women tend to be a bit more emotionally connected to the financial side of their life as opposed to men?
Yeah, I do. And also I find that it's normally when something's happened that they say, oh my goodness, I can't pay a bill, or something's happened, and then they go into a panic because they're worried about what money. Therefore, when it comes to looking at and assessing things, we bury our head in the sand quite a lot. I've done this in difficult times. When I was 19, I had a car accident, and I didn't realise it at the time, but for the following 2 years after that, I spent at least 2.5 years spending. I was going through an emotional process where I was almost making myself feel better, and I came out with a lot of debt. And it was only working in the city, and I was at the time working before the recession, that I earned a lot of money. I managed to clear my debt off. But so we've all gone through our journeys. It's taking those steps to tackle it head on that I was able to do that, and I was in a financial position to do that. I was very lucky. But you can't just wait until you're in a pickle. You've got to do it when you have got that afternoon to yourself, which is very tempting not to, because otherwise it's not exactly fun. Let's face it, who wants to sit there and go through spreadsheets? Now, some people are into spreadsheets, and this is where men normally come up and say, oh, we're better with figures. That's not true. Women are fantastic with figures, but it's because of that emotional connection we choose. Our little voice tells us, no, we don't like doing that, do we? So we won't do it. It's not because we're not able to. I'm not exactly, an instant mathematician. You give me a formula, I'd have to sit down and think about it. It takes effort, and I think that sometimes is what we put off. And also that thing about being honest with ourselves when it comes to assessing and taking a step back. I talk about detoxing quite a lot. And one of the things I suggest people do when they're going through the detox is that they set themselves a small budget for the small things that they know that they like. Maybe it is that coffee on a Friday with a friend, for example, but everything else is what I would class as fixed expenditure, which are your main bills, your gas, your electric, your business outgoings, etc. But when it comes to more lifestyle costs, you really draw that back in for 1 month, but over that month you write a diary of how you're feeling in that month, about, oh, I really like to go and buy that dress that I saw in the shop. You'd write down the dress and how much it cost. And you have to think about whether you want it or you need it. And there's a difference. And I think that's where women particularly struggle, because we tell ourselves we need it, like we really need it. We really need that new pair of shoes. And if we're honest with ourselves, no, we want it. There are examples where we're maybe going on holiday and we haven't got any bikini whatsoever. Now, you can't go on holiday in a jumper and jeans. So there are examples where there are certain things you need, but do you need 10? No, you probably need 2. So it's just being honest with yourself that, that nice sparkly one, I can't decide between the two. and I'm being flippant about clothes just because it's an easy example, but it could be, from anything really. And if you set yourself a detox and write this diary over the month, you get to the end of the month, and then you can start to see a column, and you can list all the things that you wanted and the things that you needed. And if there are things that you need that you want to then go and buy, well, you should have the money in your bank account because you haven't spent previously throughout the month. You can just go and buy them. But if you've got £300 or £400 spare, just for example, and you said to yourself, well, actually, if I save that, that means next year I could have a holiday, or that might mean I could put a deposit together for a house, or, well, actually, I wanted to take my friend away for a spa day, that will pay for that. There's other things that you might think, well, actually, I don't know. Actually, I don't need that pair of shoes, because that emotional need at that time is then gone. It's not there anymore. You've forgotten about it. So you then think about it more logically, and I think that's where men particularly, they have it for different things. Their gadgets, for example, they're no different really, but they're able to use a lot more logic in their thinking. And say, there's not a lot of men that still have credit cards, that still have debt. That's no different with men and women in that respect. But that emotional connection is different. And with particularly female clients, whenever they've done this detox, it has literally been life-changing. And I've told that they've saved hundreds of pounds, and it's really made a big difference to their lifestyle and their families. So it's something I encourage everybody to do, just from the success of other clients, really. And then what you can go on to do, because a habit takes at least 6 to 8 weeks to create, minimal. So 4 weeks is not really enough. So then I suggest that there's a readjustment on their budget, and they spend the next following 4 or 2 months then actually settling into a different pattern. So they're the sorts of things that are practical, and I hope that makes sense.
Wow, I absolutely think that's a brilliant concept, and I think I can see why it's transformed so many lives, because what you're really doing there is bringing people back to, I think, have a connection with themselves rather than living in an external sort of sense, as it were. Yes. And also really question, well, okay, well, every time I've gone on holiday for the past 10 years, coming back to your example, I have bought, 5 new bikinis, one for, every day of the week, or 7 bikinis or whatever. But actually, does that make or break the quality of my holiday? Does that ensure that I'll have a great time? And it's really, I think it's a genius way of doing things, and it really is inviting them to become more personally aware as well as being financially aware, because this could easily spill over into other areas of their lives, in their relationships, into the relationship they have with food in their body, and also create and expand a more fulfilling way of life, really. So I think that's
totally. And I know I hear myself saying quite a lot. For example, I want to eat healthier, and I want to work out more, and I want to horse ride more. So there's 3 things that I want to do. But for a very long time, I've told myself I can't afford it. I can't afford it. No, I can't afford that. And when that's my little voice, and I've had to actually talk to myself and say, when am I saying this? How am I saying it to myself? Where's that coming from? And I've had to make my own self-assessments. And I think as a person and as a businesswoman, that is how I've developed and how I've grown, because I've actually picked up on that voice, and I've said to myself, what is it? What is it that I need to change? And actually, if I gave myself more time, and I gave myself more ability to be able to, be a balanced lifestyle, for example, then it will mean that I'm able to enjoy my job more and get more done and have more energy, and I'll be a happier overall person. So I'm starting to prioritise me in the right ways, and that is not buying more shoes, that is not buying more more clothes to make myself feel better. It's focusing on the internal process and what internally makes me feel better, and then in the long run overall it will mean that I'm actually more performing better, feeling better, and having a better lifestyle overall. So it's really working out what is important to you, and as I'm growing older, that's definitely where I'm at.
Absolutely, and you hit the nail on the head there with, you know, bringing in the fun and the enjoyment back into our life, because very often we're locked into spending money on things that we think we need, but over here there's this whole kind of, you know, area of our life that we're not meeting the need for, because we, like you say, we think we can't do it. So it really is about going into the orchard and taking every single tree in turn and just shaking it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's totally, and it's just sort of working out what is it that is making you happy, because like you say, money is intertwined in everything that we do. So that would pay for the horses, that would pay for the better food, you know, being more nutrition, that would pay for you know, a gym membership or a personal trainer, or and why aren't those things important? Why that they are very much, and it's actually saying to myself, no, you can afford that. It's okay for you to do that. And it's just, again, looking at your budget and actually saying, well, I've saved so much here, rather than spending it. You know, everyone seems to spend what they have each month. So I have clients that are earning 150,000 or 20,000, and everyone spends all of it. And every single one of them is surprised when I say, you've got 500 or £1,000 spare. No, I haven't. Every single one. Everyone all spends all their money every month. So if that's the case, and less people are saving, less people are investing, less people are doing with their money, then it means that, how do I put this without saying, it's just addressing things and looking at things overall.
What would you perhaps say to somebody who isn't on a salary at the moment and is perhaps, you know, running a business, or, you know, stepping into entrepreneurism, and you know, is having to really dig deep into their and really access and assess their belief systems and their money story, because as we talked earlier on, you know, everyone comes with a money story depending on what their upbringing was, what kind of style of financial upbringing we had.
Totally, yeah.
You know, how did you, you know, what, and I love how you, sorry to cut in there, but I love how you were so honest there, because it's really valuable for our audience to see that even people like yourself who, you know, work in this industry, the industry of financial planning and you know, money, really, you do money for a living, that even you still have that little voice. And you have to check yourself, and it's really valuable for our audience to see that, because what it really speaks of is it's constant awareness, constant being on top of things, constantly being in a dialogue with yourself, really, and being willing to be honest and truthful.
And that is what, as a businesswoman, that is my biggest area where I've realised that I'm my strength. And if I look at all the other businesswomen that I know locally, and I've got to know, they've become friends and people that I've aligned myself with just naturally without being aware, is that we're all self-aware. We're all able to say, and I don't mean to the point if we're going down a path that we say, right, this is not working, I'm now going to completely change my whole direction because it's not working. It's being honest and saying, well, what is working about it? What do I need to tweak? What do I need to change? And at the same time, spinning all your plates, and at the same time, taking on board more information around you, you know, absorbing and learning, being a sponge about everything as much as you can within the industry that you're in, and from other people around you, and spinning all those plates at the same time, as well as aware. So it's a massive, massive process. And if you can do that, then you will come out the other end. Whilst you're doing it, you have to be very honest about your financial situation. Don't say yes to absolutely anything financially, or in terms of marketing, in terms of anything, until you've stepped on it and you've talked it through with either a mentor or a colleague or somebody that you know. Any project you have coming up, budget for it, list of costings out. If you know, hit their brains, ask for help. Don't think you're alone, but be honest with the figures and be honest with the results that you want from the figures. Because one of the biggest mistakes I've made is jumping in thinking I'm just going to try everything and anything, and I can do it because I've got. When I say ballsy, I'm ballsy. I'll get it done. I'm out there. I'll make it happen. I'll make it successful. I've had successful careers in other companies. I've done it for other people. I can do it. I can do it. I don't need anyone's help. I can do it. So, but that's great. It's great if you've got that passion and that drive and that enthusiasm. But at the same time, now what I've learned is just to take a step back and actually ask people around you, list all the costings and just take stock. Is it the best way for you to move forward? And yeah, that would be my two biggest nuggets. Be honest with yourself, take a step back and assess, is it right, and ask for help. You're not alone.
I love that. I love that you've definitely, made that almost a non-negotiable. Don't do it alone. And you know what? It's so funny because years and years ago, when I was stepping out into this industry, I didn't know that there were people out there who could help in this way. Someone who was, who really knew the ins and outs, not just perhaps of the, I met a client last week who was just signed up to work with me, and she's been through 3 different business coaches. They just weren't in alignment with what she needed. She's a very passionate, spiritually minded, heart-centered business lady who needed someone who was aligned with that side of her and who could approach what was going on for her holistically. So I didn't know that was available all those years ago, and it's really good now because there's so many of us doing, even to the level of what you're doing. I love how you're bringing the feminine touch back to straight finances.
Thank you.
Really great.
Yeah, I definitely shop around, look around for the right coach, mentor, even if it's just somebody. If you see someone being successful and you see someone in your area doing really well, then ask to meet them for coffee. Don't be scared. Like, ask. There's especially with women, we're very much, if someone rang me and said, I've just started my business, I really need a hand, would you mind helping me? I run a women's networking group. There's a lot of things out there that to help people. So just ask. Yeah.
Don't be afraid to put your hand up.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we're all natural. We've all been there. We've all started somewhere. My business has been running over 3 years now, and yes, it's going really, really well. But it didn't at the beginning. I was completely on my own. I started with no brand, no website, no clients, nothing. So yeah, it's hard work. So those people that are starting out, good on you, but just don't be too hard on yourself. It's okay to ask for help.
That's lovely. And I know that you've got a free gift to help our audience along with their finances today. Would you be able to share all about that?
Yeah, so people at different lives, different points of their lives. So I've got a couple of different things that are ongoing on my website. It's just there for help. It's all about giving information and helping people. So I've got a free budget planner that can be downloaded. I've also got a free financial guide on there, and I also offer those that are interested a free financial checkup, which is a 20-minute checkup on the phone. Because I'm regulated by the FCA, there's no I'm very regulated in terms of red tape of what I can and I can't say. So when it comes to these sorts of conversations, they have to be very generic. But then when we're having a one-to-one conversation, it's very much about the person and where they are with their finances. But it has to be advice for the right individual, just because I'm a qualified advisor. So but if anyone's got any questions or needs any help, then they're welcome to email me if there's any particular question.
We'll have all your details included in this interview. Oh, so Rebecca, thank you so much. I just like to invite you to just share one last, perhaps your top, not tip, because I'm not really into tips, but your last kind of sharing with our audience. Well, what have you found to be a valuable piece of information or nugget of wisdom?
In life or in business or in family or
whatever's coming through, I mean, our topic's been money, but as we've already discussed, that all areas of life intertwine and mesh, and they affect and impact on the other areas. So just go for it.
Well, success to me doesn't necessarily mean earning £100,000 a year, which in my industry is what, if you don't go to an interview saying that that's what you want to earn, then you won't get the job. So money is quite that sort of orientated. But for me, that's not success. It's currently the summer holidays, and my daughter has over 8 weeks off over the summer holidays. So success for me is being able to work, earning a good full-time income, and actually look after her sort of 70-80% of the time over the summer holidays. And I'm really pleased that I'm able to do that, really. So that's success for me. So it's working out and then working towards it and not letting go until you've got it, because you can do it and anyone can do it. It's just spinning those plates, self-assessing, driving yourself through barriers that you won't like and that are not comfortable, but it's not meant to be easy, otherwise everyone else would be doing it. And everyone told me when I first started, just go back and work in a bank, Becky. Don't put yourself under so much pressure. And everyone told me it was a silly idea. You know, my brand's called Evolution for Women. What does that mean? How's that? What's that all about? But you know what? I did get there, and it's just through that self-assessment, through that drive, and knowing what I wanted, and being really clear about what I wanted, that I've achieved what is now I deem as successful. And I've not been able to say that for a long time. I beat myself up thinking I need more and more and more. But actually, when I thought about it, yeah, that does make me I'm successful to me, and that's what's more important. It doesn't matter if other people deem that to be. I'm not earning £100,000 a year, for example. So just work hard, keep going.
Rebecca, you're such an inspiration to well, men and women, but I know that this is going to really strike a chord with a lot of our female audience today. And thank you for speaking so honestly and bearing all. I always find that when it was the same for me years ago when I was, witnessing other professionals, experts and leaders speak about their stories. It was in those moments of vulnerability that I was able to, grasp onto that glimmer of hope and that sort of, that inspiration that actually, wow, if they can do it, I'm sure I can do it too. So thank you for sharing so honestly and frankly.
And that's one of the things that I've learned, actually. I've learned not to be, I think, because I'm regulated and it's financial planner. I gave the impression at the beginning when I first started that, ultra professional, and I'm not saying I'm not professional, but I just mean that I'm Rebecca Robertson, I am me, and it's just saying, this is okay, this is me, and if people like me, that's great, and if I'm not their cup of tea, then that's fine as well. So it's just being honest with yourself and just putting yourself out there.
Well, I think you're very congruent with what we like in this world, especially in this event, colouring outside the lines and creating your own reality. Yeah, I love it. Thank you so much. Wishing you and everyone in our audience a bliss-filled rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.